Hello, my friends. This is Andy over at Falco Canine Academy. Welcome to our Facebook Live, and I'm coming to you live from Brea, California, where I have my studio. And unfortunately, we have to have this episode where we're going to talk about a woman in Virginia who was killed by two pit bulls. Now, there's surely some controversy on the internet and on social media. People are saying that it's possible that somebody else killed her and the dogs just ate her dead body. And I should have had a little bit of a disclaimer for parents. Maybe this may not be appropriate for young people. So I apologize that I didn't say that ahead of time. But we're going to be talking about a lot of rough stuff here as we go forward in this discussion on what happened with this young lady and her two pit bull dogs. So a disclaimer or parental advisement that we will be talking about some pretty rough stuff here. And so know that ahead of time. All right. So in Virginia, a woman, let me go ahead and share my screen, and I will go ahead and share the article here that, oh, wow. Why am I showing two? Let me just get rid of one. Why is that happening? So sorry. So let's show this one. This is the one I want to show. There you go. So here's the article that you find on Yahoo. And so this lady, young woman, I should call her, who was found dead in the woods in Goochland County, Virginia. She was in the story. It says she was mauled to death by her dog. She's 22 years old. Bethany Lynn Stevens was found by her father on Thursday at around 8 p.m. And after failing to hear from his daughter, the concerned parent called 911 and then went looking for her in the area where she often walked her dogs, Pac-Man and Tonka. There's a picture of the lady with the young woman. I should stop calling her a lady. The young woman with her one of the pit bulls. I'm not sure which one that is. Let's see if it shows. No, it doesn't show which one that is. There's a couple photographs here with the dogs, and clearly she is a petite woman, pit bull. She's rough and tumble apparently, and kind of knows what she's doing, at least in regard to the wilderness and that kind of stuff, because this is Virginia. And who knows, but it looks like she kind of, knows her way around the forest and hiking and dogs and that kind of stuff. But she's very small, and she's got two pit bulls that she went for a walk with. Somebody mentioned that, this dog's too small to have harmed her. Well, obviously that is a puppy. People are crazy on social media. But, they say, well, how could this small little tiny dog? It's a puppy back in the day when the dog was a puppy. So let's just get that out of the way. So Goochland, what a funny name for a county. Goochland County Sheriff James Agnew said that once officers arrived at the scene, they spent over an hour trying to capture the large pit bulls, which are believed to both weigh as much as their 5'1", 125-pound owner. Stephen's body was then taken to a medical examiner's office where the gruesome details of the attack came to light. So you can read this article, and it's actually in the Facebook post that you can see on the Falco Canine Academy Facebook page. And so you can see that there. And here, let me just show you, as I'm trying to maneuver around my Facebook page here, or my Facebook page. Wow. I hope that you're seeing the screen, because everything is running really slow here on my end. There it is. There's the Facebook page. Wow. All right, I'm getting together. The software that I'm using is acting a little bizarre here. All right, so there's the Facebook posting. As you go to my Facebook page, you can find the posting and the original story that I put up there, asking for comments. And we got quite a few comments on this posting. Some of them asking, did people consider that maybe this woman was, attacked by somebody else, and the dogs possibly mauled her after the attack? Maybe another animal, maybe a wolf came and attacked, and she got caught in the middle of it and took her down. So there's a couple of things here that you might want to read. Much of it is when I want to know information. So I planned on doing a Facebook Live on this anyway, and so I'm going to try to help y'all understand what can happen with dogs, regardless of what you hear in social media and what people's, belief systems might be in dogs. And I don't want to use I don't want to use too strong of words here. I know that it's really easy for me to do that, to say, you got these dog lovers who are kind of at the extreme level of things and blaming the human beings. And you got the pit bull haters who are blaming the pit bulls. You have, people blaming the cops, what have you, or the wild animals around there. It can be a little bit more simpler than all of that. And so I'm going to try to work it all out for you. Now, understand, I've been doing this business for about 30 years. I come up from a place where, and I'm sorry if my video is shaky. I'm looking at my feed over here and it looks very bad. And I'm sorry, I can't tell you why, but it's not looking good. Let me stop sharing my desktop and maybe that will help. I have most of my tabs closed, but give me just a second to see if I can lessen the load on my computer here. If somebody could comment and tell me if it's just unwatchable. If it's unwatchable, I will surely restart and see if I can't reboot everything. But I've closed the screen sharing. Maybe that will help. Close my email. Most of the stuff I do automatically anyway, but it looked fine to start with. So I got Cameron's webpage up, who is my new co-host on our podcast called the Train the Dog Trainer Podcast. All right. So hopefully that helped. I've hidden a couple of things. So let me know in the comments what you see in the video. If it's unwatchable, if it is, I'll restart and see if we can't, because I want everybody to know what really happened. And I believe that I have the answers to most of what happened with this young lady and her dogs, and it's not as sinister as y'all may think. Some of it involves just the nature of dogs. So we're going to try to get through some of this stuff. So what I first want to do is I want to make sure that wow, so much stuff is not operating correctly on this screen. I'm so sorry. This is not a good thing. All right, I'm just trying to muddle through this. So let's see if this thing will finally show up. There it is. It finally showed up. I've been clicking on this for some time. Welcome to Falco Canine Academy. My name's Andy Falco Jimenez. I am the owner of Falco Canine Academy. And just so you know, in case there's people watching that have no clue who I am and what my experience is, let me share with you a little bit about where I come from. So several years ago, 3 decades ago, unfortunately, I was a police officer with the City of Anaheim. Early on, I had an extreme interest getting involved in the canine unit. As a kid, I thought that I would become a whale and dolphin trainer over at SeaWorld. That was my belief. I took oceanography. I did everything, realized that I can't stand numbers, and chemistry was a huge part of getting my degree in oceanography. Later on, I would discover that maybe oceanography wasn't the end-all be-all into getting to SeaWorld, but at the time I thought it was. However, I was a magician. I did magic. I juggled over at Knott's Berry Farm and did a bunch of things. Who knew at that time that I would become a police officer with the City of Anaheim? Somehow I became a cop. I woke up one day with a uniform, made it through the academy, and I was on the street patrolling the City of Anaheim. And then I found the canine unit and discovered my passion in life, and that is training humans and their dogs, not just training dogs. And so I have been on a path of discovering, of learning, of teaching, and studying the work with humans and their dogs, not just dogs. As a matter of fact, there's people like Cameron Thompson over at Home to Canine, who has words that she used in regards to canines that I am clueless on on some of the words that she uses. And I know that it has a use in dog stuff. And I told her that just being around her is going to make me sound a lot smarter, because I don't talk in terms like that. I talk in terms that most of my of the police officers and pet dog owners just need to know how to fix things. And I don't use a lot of the typical dog training words and nomenclature when it comes to that. But I do know humans and their dogs, and many things that can go well and many things that can go wrong. And I've seen it all. Just about, not everything. You never stop learning, but I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of stuff. So that's what you get here at Falco Canine Academy. You get somebody who has a whole bunch of experience and not studied at UC Davis. I created a study along with some professors at UC Davis, where we created wrote a scientific paper on scent detection dogs, also involved the issue in relationship to dogs and humans. So all that's, I think, important to know, because I want you to know that because I'm going to come and tell you what I think happened in Virginia, and I was not even there. All right. Let's talk about right now. So what I do now, not only do I run Falco Canine Academy, not only do we have our pet dog training side of things, not only do I have the history of training police dogs and bomb dogs and narcotics dogs, bedbug dogs, peanut dogs, service dogs, search and rescue dogs, have all that experience, but now I testify in court cases by evaluating information that I get in regard to a dog case. Any kind of criminal case involving a dog, I get all the information, I evaluate, I watch video, I determine if a dog is working properly in regard to police dogs, if the dog is searching properly in regard to detection dogs, if it's a slip and fall where a dog hurt somebody, I look at all the information about that. And so I testify as an expert in court cases. And I've been doing that for several years now. Some people don't like it that I do that, and they get their feelings hurt, especially law enforcement. And if I happen to say something against law enforcement, I am a cop. I'm still a cop in my body and in my brain and in everything that I do. But sometimes cops need to be called on their BS because they are not being entirely truthful in what their dogs do. And that is my job. All right. So that's what I do. And whether you like it or not, whether you're a cop and like me, I don't care. I'm telling you that my job is to tell the truth and what happens. So my job is to evaluate such things as what happened here in Virginia and come up with some answers as to why did it happen. All right, so I hope that's helpful. In the meantime, if you would like a training report about our training, and our training is titled Training with Love and Respect, you can get this report here. I'm going to put the link in the chat here and paste it. So nobody's written into the comment section about it not being watchable. So I'm assuming that everything's going well and you guys can see exactly what's happening. And I'm seeing the numbers kind of going up. So people are actually watching and staying on. So I'm going to assume that everything's working well. I would really appreciate somebody typing in about, the quality of the video, because I want to make sure that this message gets out about these dogs. All right. And again, I see the numbers fluctuating as to going up and down. So I just want to make sure that people aren't leaving because it's not watchable. All right. So we're going to be talking about some tough stuff here a little bit, not too rough, but we're going to talk about a lady that gets killed by 2 dogs and why that possibly happened. It's there's some factors here that have not been brought up, and perhaps there's a lot of people that don't know these things about dogs. So there's the report. It's in the comment section. So let's first talk about the first thing that comes to everybody's mind, and that is the perception that pit bulls are dangerous. If you recall, I produced a show along with Cesar Millan. Actually, he produced it. He asked me to help in the production of a show called Love My Pit Bull. And it was a show where we tried to show that pit bulls can actually do work, right? They can become detection dogs. They can be protection dogs. They can be search and rescue dogs. We demonstrated how you can train a pit bull, even a pit bull in some people's minds, to do some of these things. The service work. Dogs can be therapy dogs. Pit bulls can be therapy dogs, and that is true. They absolutely can. Are pit bulls? So the answer to the question: are pit bulls? Is the pit bull breed a dangerous breed? And I'm going to tell you that my experience, and it could be different than anybody else's, and I've had a lot of pit bulls, but trust me, our facility is known for taking all the dogs that get kicked out at all the other training sessions, or we get all the dogs that if Falco Canine Academy is their last stop. If we can't help them with the dog, then the dog goes off and gets euthanized. I'm here to tell you that we have been very fortunate over the last 20 years or so. Only 2 dogs that I know of that we saw were euthanized because of just they were dangerous dogs, and none of those were pit bulls. All right, so are pit bulls dangerous? I'm going to finally get to the answer for that question. Are pit bulls dangerous? And just in regard to aggression, so there's one aspect in regard to aggression that the thought is pit bulls are more aggressive than other dogs. And I'm here to tell you that I do not think that is true. I do not think pit bulls are more aggressive than some other breeds. If a Chihuahua was the size of a pit bull, they definitely would be outlawed. My history with Chihuahuas is that I've probably seen more Chihuahuas bite indiscriminately people, children, than any other breed. Now, again, statistically, we will never know because nobody reports a Chihuahua bite. How many times can a Chihuahua bite in a day? Several times, and never does anybody report a Chihuahua bite. Now, do they get reported? I'm sure that at least at some point in some county, in some state, a Chihuahua, gets reported that it bit my son as my 2-year-old as it came into the house or something. But again, the bites are usually fairly minor and don't cause a lot of damage. And so, the Chihuahua. So you got Dalmatians that have been, that are known to be kind of fearful, aggressive dogs. You have your Chows. You got your German Shepherds, who surely get into enough bites that it is known that they bite. A lot of times it's because they're in police work, so they bite people and they're trained to bite people. You got your Belgian Malinois, you got your Rottweilers and that kind of stuff, right? But we always come back to this pit bull issue that the pit bulls need to be outlawed, right? You have those people who think pit bulls should be outlawed because they believe they're dangerous. I'm telling you that I do not believe the breed of pit bulls is dangerous on that side in regard to that they're more aggressive than any other dog. Here's the problem with pit bulls. The problem with the pit bull is their jaws and their bite are so powerfully strong because they were bred several years ago in the 1700s to be used in a sport in the bull ring, where they were trained and they were bred to take down bulls inside of a ring, and people would bet, can the pit bull dog breed win against a bull? Would the dog be able to grab that bull by the nose and bite so hard to pull down a bull, a bovine? And that was the game. That was the sport. And these dogs were bred to have the strongest bite that they could possibly have in order to be able to do that. If they didn't, they wouldn't be able to hang on because the bull would shake them off. And so they bred the bull, the pit bull, to have that strong, powerful bite. It's in the shape of the jaws. It's in the shape of the mouth. It's in the length of the mouth. So it's a little bit shorter, but more powerful. And these muscles that are in that jaw are so strong that it gives it the perception that the jaw has locked. Now, do they really lock? No, there's no real locking mechanism, but they are so powerful that you would think that they're locked. And so what they have is a pry tool, a piece of wood that you take and put in the dog's mouth, and you pry their mouth open to get them off. If it's a pit bull ring where they're fighting other dogs, they can't get them off because the dog's jaw has become so locked down that they have to pry it off using a wooden tool. So there is actually in pit bull fighting rings a tool called the pry tool, where they pry a dog's mouth off. So you go back in the 1700s, that's how they were bred, and it's kind of been continued on. It wasn't bred out. Now the bulldog was created to be to take the good things about the pit bull breed, but take out the dangerous jaw. And so what they did is they bred dogs that caused the nose to be kind of smashed in, and that's where you get the bulldog breed. They originally were pit bulls, but because that jaw is so powerful, they go, we like the breed because they're known as the nanny breed. You can actually leave this dog with children. It'll protect the children at a farm location. And so people are saying we like the personality. We just hate that the jaw is so strong. So they created the bulldog with a smashed in mouth so that they didn't have the powerful jaw. All right. So oh my gosh, I heard a bunch of yelling inside. Apparently the kids are playing a game where they just won. It sounded like a dog got hurt, but it's one of my kids. So sorry about that. My heart stopped for just a brief moment. All right. So that's the history of the dog. So now what causes the pit bull to be dangerous is not their personality, not that they're more aggressive, but their jaws are so powerful that they cause great damage, and they can break bones, and they can cause death. All right. So I hope that answers the question. It kind of sounds like I'm walking the fence, because I'm telling you, the pit bull breed, I've seen them live in an environment at home and never have an issue. But they do have a little bit of a history of becoming aggressive in certain situations where the planets get lined up and then they bite, just like any dog. The first dog I got bit by in our pet dog training, actually I never got bit accidentally by a police dog. I had trained thousands of police dogs across the United States and Canada and even in South America. And I'd never been bitten necessarily out of just accidental aggression by a dog. So I get in the pet dog industry, and I have pet dog classes going on. The first dog I got bit by is not a pit bull, even though I had plenty of pit bulls in my class. The first dog I get bit by is a golden retriever. All right. And so There you go. I probably had trained about 30 pit bulls at the time, and 2 golden retrievers, maybe, or 4 maybe in our classes. And the first time I get bit by a dog out of aggression is a golden retriever. I then got bit by it was just a mutt type of dog another time on the leg. And then at some point I did get bit by a pit bull in Huntington Beach during a training session, but we knew that dog had problems, and the handler kind of let the dog, gave the dog too much line. He got me in the derriere. Fortunately, in my pocket, I had some paperwork from the church that was there, Mariners Church there at Huntington Beach. It was in my pocket, so when the dog bit me, it got all the paper that was in my pocket, and that saved my butt. All right, so I hope that answers the question. We're going to talk about that maybe a little bit more in just a little bit. But the pit bull breed itself, I don't think they're more aggressive than any other dog, but when they do become aggressive, it's bad because their jaw is so strong. That's really the answer. And I went through a whole long road to get to that point. All right. So the next thing here that I want to discuss is then why would these dogs, why would any dog kill their owner? And this is the biggest thing that I'm going to talk about that is in regard to this situation with the lady in Virginia. Why did my thing stop working? I need to have my logo. There we go. There it goes. Sorry, it stopped working for someone. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about some police dog training, which is going to lead us to what I believe happened here, at least one of the possibilities of what happened here. And so you have a young lady who's with 2 dogs that she trusts, that based on the article and based what is written, that people say these dogs are social dogs. They're dogs that have been known to get along with people. They leave other animals alone. And there's been no history that anybody ever thought that these dogs would ever harm this young woman. There is some talk that over the last couple months leading up to this incident, that she had left the dogs with her dad, and her dad really didn't take care of the dogs in a certain way. I don't believe that caused any more chance for these dogs to become aggressive towards her. I think that most dogs can take being left alone and not eating for a couple of days. And when the owner gets back, they go, "Hey, I'm glad you're here. No worry about not feeding me for a couple of days." Most dogs are pretty forgiving, even pit bull dogs. So I don't believe that the couple of days or however long it was, it could have been a couple of months where the dogs maybe didn't eat every day at a certain time and that kind of thing. I think that neglect was a strong word based on what I read, that it's not necessarily neglect to the sense where the dogs were beaten every day or anything like that. Here's my son Bo wearing his jammies. I heard you guys screaming in there. You guys were screaming a lot in there. Did somebody win a game? What are you doing? All right.
Teddy and Rhett win the game.
Oh, they won a game? They scared me because I heard screaming. I thought somebody got hurt. Can you do me a favor and go sit in that chair over there or go back inside the house? All right. I'm doing some serious work here. All right. No. I'm busy. Go sit down. All right. Yes, you can have an orange. And so we got these dogs who are very attached to this woman. They've never shown any signs of aggression. They've never shown any signs towards any other animals. And so the thought is, what the heck happened? All right. So in police dog training, the police handlers and their dogs become very close in most cases. And so you have dogs that are riding around in a car with patrolmen. They are reaching back over their shoulder right here. They're driving right here and constantly petting the dogs. There's constant connection, constant training, constant learning from each other. And the dogs also go home with most police officers. And so the dogs and the handlers have a really close attachment to the dogs, much like what we're learning about this young lady here, is that she also had a strong connection with her dog. All right. So you have these two things. And I want to use them because it's going to take us down a road as to how this kind of thing happens, regardless of the connection between the human and the dog. All right. You have a lady really attached to her dog. She loves her dogs. She takes them to work with her. She rides around with them and they have a good connection. You got police officers, same thing, live with the dog, work with the dog, train probably more together than any other, dog couple out there. And so you got a very similar thing. So International Police Conference, I trained as a lead instructor for what was called problem solving, handler protection, and a big gigantic group walk thing. And so I was the lead trainer for those two things. The handler protection scenario was this. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to show handlers that they have to be careful when they're in a hand-to-hand combat with a suspect and they make the decision to call their dog out of the car to rescue them. And our point is that if you are on top, if you're standing when this is happening, it's one of the best things you can do is call your dog out of the car by pushing the button on your belt. The door opens up, the dog comes out and helps you fight this guy who's very aggressive. But only if you're standing and only if you are winning in a sense, or at least in a position of advantage when you decide to pop the door. All right. So if you're going to try to get that fight to stop as quickly as possible, you have to make it at that point that you're going to pop the door only when you're in a position of advantage, which means that you are on top or you're standing and the suspect is on the ground. If you decide to pop the door and you're on the ground and in a position of where you're losing the fight or a position of disadvantage, you should not pop the door. Why? Because your dog will attack you, not the suspect. We tell the handlers this. We say, this is what happens. And they're all going, BS. My dog loves me. My dog has, saved me in other situations. My dog would never attack me. Okay, fine. So we set up the scenario. We have them pull their police car up. We have our decoy who, is just another police officer or somebody that's trained. We then act out a fight. We have the handler go to ground as if he's losing the fight, and the dog is in a muzzle. All right, just so you know, the dog is in a muzzle. And once the handler is on the ground and the suspect is over the top beating him, we say, handler, pop the door. The handler pops his door. We also give the instructions, never have your back to your dog, right? Make sure you can see your dog. Never have your back against the dog or to the dog when he's coming out of that door. All right. So we tell them, please do not do that because the dog's going to come out and hit you. And they're going, BS, that we're wrong. And so I'm going to tell you, I've done this well over 300 or 400 times. Handler on the ground. Suspect is on top beating him, acting like he's beating him. Handler pops the door. Dog comes out and dog comes and nails and hits the handler. Not the suspect, the handler. 99% of the time, the dog attacks his handler if he's on the ground and down and out. And some of the biggest, baddest dogs hit harder on their handler than they do on suspects when it's in this situation where you have another human being hitting the other human being, regardless if it's the handler or not, and the dog comes out and nails the handler with aggression. Not soft taps. I'm telling you, dog comes out and just hits them so hard. German Shepherds, Malinois, Dutch Shepherds. We've even done it with Labs. We've even done it with Rottweilers, and the dog hits hard. On 2 occasions that I remember, the handlers got taken to the hospital because of injuries from their own dog in a muzzle, right? Just think what would happen if the dog didn't have a muzzle. All right, so this is going someplace, I'm telling you. And so when you're in a position of disadvantage, what happens is genetics take over, hierarchy takes over, pack mentality takes over. And in the pack world, and we're going to go a little bit to wolves, and I know people kind of get weirded out when we go to wolves and that kind of stuff, but we got to go back there, or even jackals, right? When you have a weak member of the pack who's dragging down the pack or is losing a fight, it is natural for the rest of the pack to take the weak member out. If it's losing in a fight, they will take that dog out. And it's just part of genetics. It is part of, pack mentality. And this is what kind of kicks in. And I would love comments from people, and I don't see any yet. I see people are on and watching, but you're either all stunned or you're all driving. All right. So anybody that's watching that can comment, please comment and just let me know that you're watching, that you're listening, that this is interesting or not interesting, or that you're full of crap. All right. So I'm telling you, we've done this. I got to say at least 300, if not 400 times. And 99% of the time, the dog hits his own handler with aggression to take him out. And it's that pack mentality. All right. So, yes, Ray. Yes. And so you guys are getting a little bit of a taste of me with my kids and working with them. Hey, Christina, glad to see that somebody's answering me in the comment that people are alive and they're not just completely stunned about what I'm about to say. All right, so this is going to get to the Virginia incident, I'm telling you. And so this is natural that a dog will take out the weaker member of the pack, even though the other pack member is a stranger, right? We then instruct, and let me just finish this scenario. We then instruct for the handler to stand up and send the dog to stand up, and then send the dog after the suspect. And in many cases, they can't get their dog to stop fighting them. They'll get up, and the dog will continue to knock them down. They're handlers. The dog is now in a place in his brain that he cannot stop himself from attacking what was once weak, even though now he's standing up, and the dog's like, I've got to take you out. The brain, I am my robot, I take you out, and the dog cannot stop. And it is very difficult for a handler to now turn that dog around and have him go after the suspect. If you're wondering, does this ruin the dog for the handler? No, because we go back and do other scenarios, and it's never caused a continued problem between the relationship and the handler. They're able to go on and do other scenarios. The dog just goes, all right, well, we're going to go do that building search, or we're going to do the other handler protection thing, or what have you. And it doesn't stick. It's just during that moment when the handler is in a vulnerable position and losing a fight that the dog comes out to finish the job. All right, because now the handler has proven himself to be weak in that situation only, and the dog is just doing what he is bred to do, what his genetics tell him to do, what his pack mentality tells him to do. All right, so yes, so now let's get to what happened in Virginia. At least one of the things that I think are as a possibility. You have two pit bull dogs, very strong dogs, and the third person obviously makes a pack, right? And so you're walking along with your dogs. One of the possibilities that can happen is when you're hiking in the wilderness, in the woods, or even just on a trail, is you can trip and fall. You can be doing something like hanging from a tree or something like that. I don't know, just name the thing. And you can cause yourself to fall. It happens all the time. We have what's called a mastermind retreat. We go for hikes, and we almost always have somebody who trips and falls or loses their balance and ends up on the ground. If in a situation you got two pit bulls that love you to death, that you've been feeding and caring, you've had them since 8 weeks old, kind of like what this young lady had, one of the dogs since the dog was 8 weeks old. Even in a situation like this, it can cause the dogs to be put in this situation where she trips and falls and possibly lands on one of the dogs. Dogs can still, again, I've been bit by golden retrievers who felt that they were threatened, or they became fearful suddenly, even by their owners, and they bite, right? I've had dogs here that I've had that have tried to bite me, that I just put them in a situation where they felt vulnerable, or they felt fear for a moment, and they bite only to tell me that they feel fearful, not because they're necessarily aggressive. So let's say this young lady trips and falls, lands on a dog. The dog gets temporarily like, oh shit, why is she attacking me? And the dog growls. In a pack type of situation, it can cause the other dog to now think, hey, that dog's in trouble. And then you see the woman on her back, or she's hurt or rolling on the ground. And now the dogs begin to attack her. And now it's, again, I'm telling you, once that starts to happen, it goes downhill very quickly, and you can't get the dogs to stop. I've seen it. I've seen it hundreds, not a couple times. I've seen it 100 times, that the moment that dog gets in that situation where they're attacking their own handler because they feel that the handler has become weak and injured, it's over. And you can't get back up. I've seen grown men, 250-pound muscle men, can't get their 70-pound Malinois off of them and stand up and get the dog to stop. I've seen it. I have seen it. I'm telling you that it's hard, and it's not that easy. And these are dogs wearing muzzles. Imagine if the dog is actually biting you, and you're a 125-pound girl, and these dogs now are teaming up on you together and have you pinned to the ground, and it's over. It's over very quickly. It doesn't take much, I am telling you. But if you end up on the ground in a situation where you're scared because maybe you're hurt, and you maybe landed on the dog, or you maybe don't even have to land on the dog, but you get down, the dogs can feel threatened. They can now see that you're hurt, right? Remember, if you're hurt in a pack mentality, they don't want to drag you around. They don't want to take you on, on the walk or to continue on. Genetics, pack mentality kicks in. They say, hey, we have to take out the weaker member of this pack because they're going to hold us back, right? If it doesn't matter if it's a human. And so this begins to happen. Let me add one more factor that came out in the article. And that is, so why would the dogs kill this particular owner? And again, so I think that the possibility is that she fell and got hurt, or fell and maybe screamed, or fell and something happened. The other thing that you need to know is that she was on her menstrual cycle. How do we know this? They wanted to make sure that there wasn't a sexual attack. Maybe she was, attacked and raped and left for dead, and then now the dogs ate her or something like that. That's one of the things. And so what they did in the autopsy is they examined her. It's not a hard examination. They find out she's wearing her tampon, so she was on. It was during her cycle, on her period, and now you have the presence of blood. She goes down. She screams. Maybe she's injured, or maybe she kind of lets out a moan. She's bleeding, right? And now the dogs kick in. There are dogs, obviously, that know you're on your menstrual cycle. If you're a woman, I'm not. But if you're a woman, I know plenty of women say, when I'm on menstrual cycle, my dog constantly noses me in the groin, and I can't get the dog to stop sometimes. And because it really kicks in, the pheromones, this other stuff, it doesn't necessarily make a dog aggressive. I've heard that as something. I've not really heard that, but it does cause a little bit of a chemical reaction between the dogs. So now you have this young woman who goes down, possibly. Again, I have no proof. I'm just telling you why this possibly happened and what I think happened. She's bleeding, and lets out a little bit of scream. One dog maybe growls at her. The other dog goes, oh, my buddy's in danger. Oh, she's on the ground. She's weak. Bam. And then it turns into this whole dangerous thing because the dog's bites are so powerful and strong, because they're pit bull dogs, not because they're dangerous, aggressive dogs, but because their bite is so powerful. All it takes is one good bite, and now it's all over, because now she's really injured. Now she's screaming in pain. Now she's fighting from the ground, and the rest is history. And she goes down. I'm so sorry for the graphicness of this particular broadcast, but I've seen so many people saying all of this stuff that's just simply not true. That because the dogs were possibly neglect is probably not a factor. Because the dogs are pit bulls, it really isn't necessarily the reason why this happened, but it is a reason why she couldn't get back up, is because those bites are so powerful and strong. And the one situation that could cause this to happen is that she could fall, trip, and the dogs can begin to attack her, and then it becomes a very, very bad situation. Oh, finally getting some. Yep, I believe you are so right. Thank you, Christy. And Carmen, it can with horses also, I believe, with all animals. Yes. Remember, we're dealing with animals, right? We're dealing with pack mentality. We're dealing with something we can't communicate with our words, and dogs have reactionary things that happen, genetic things that happen that just make them do it. Why does a male dog lift his leg to pee on a tree? He's trying to get the urine as high as he can so the air will take it away. Does the dog know that? Does the dog know? Does the dog know how all that's work? Does he know what wind is? Does he know? No, it's just something that happens. The dog in his genetics is told, hey, pee as high as you can, right, in his head, right? He doesn't know, he doesn't think, well, the scent odor will be caught in the air and then taken to a place where a female will smell it, or the male dogs will know to stay away because I put it as high as possible. No, it just happens, right? Hey, buddy, go sit down in the chair. And so the pack mentality that kicks in when this kind of thing happens just happens. It's not necessarily because they're dangerous. Now, should the dog be put down? That's not a question I have here, but it is going to be something that maybe I'll save that, because I'm going to talk about that in just a second. And just looking at my notes here, my show flow. Menstrual cycle. Yep, got that. All right. So now let's talk about, was training or lack of training a factor? Since we are here and talking from Falco Canine Academy, we have to address training. So maybe some people say maybe the dogs need to be well trained, or they weren't trained well enough, or maybe the training was very harsh and that kind of stuff. I think that your manner of training is important, and I think that it can be an issue in some of these situations that could be another factor. If the lady did not fall, If she's using a tool for training like a pinch collar or something that causes great pain, maybe an electronic collar, and she's not using it in a manner that is acceptable to the dog, right? Because you have dogs that use a pinch collar and use it in an acceptable manner. The dog simply just responds and sits and downs. Electronic collar, same thing. If you've done it well enough, you can do it in a manner where the dog understands it. You don't have to go to high levels, and it's not that big of a deal. But I've seen dogs that have been corrected with a pinch collar, corrected with an electronic collar, and their body positioning and their face all show you that this is not good, right? The dog that suddenly changes and he slinks over, right? He's not doing it because he wants to please you or because he understands that by not doing it, he got corrected. And by doing it, he's going to get something positive. That looks different, right? So you say here, the dog doesn't hear, you give the butt. Oh, I'm sorry. What was I thinking? The dog comes trotting to you and says, sorry, you had to use the electronic collar. Sorry, you had to use the pinch collar. I'm here now. I'm happy to please you. Tell me what you want me to do now. All right. That's what you want. You don't want a dog that comes over and kind of goes, oh, I just please don't punish me again, please. Right. You don't want that look, because now you're taking a dog into a space or a place in his head where it's not going well. All right. Does it work? Can you go do that and not have a problem with the dog? Absolutely. I've seen it hundreds of times where dogs just kind of get used to that kind of correction. They get through it and they'll never attack you. However, let's go back to my police dog training. Because we select dogs that are very strong and powerful dogs, I have surely seen a handler correct his dog in a manner where the dog says, okay, that's it. I've had enough of your shenanigans, and the dog turn and attack the handler, crawls right up the leash and bites the handler and takes him down. How many times have I seen that? Enough. Maybe not hundreds, but I have seen it probably 50 to 60 times where a dog is turned on the handler and says, no more. Stop that BS. And then he bites the handler, bites him on the leg. I've seen handlers take their dogs home and the wife tell the dog no. And the dog says, hey, who are you? And the dog attacked the wife. And that is based on lack of good training, good sound training that creates a respectful relationship between the humans and the dogs. It is a stressful situation because now the dog is working out of fear and he knows I just got to do this thing. If I don't, I will get hurt. If I don't, I will die. Right. And so does it work? Yes. A dog goes all day long and doesn't do things because he thinks he's going to get hurt or die. But does that mean that you have a good relationship between the human and the handler? No, because there may be a point at some day where the dog says, you know, I've had enough. So I don't know. Right. However, could this have been one of those situations where the dog, you know, possibly had some behavioral problems that the woman was working through. And on this day, she decided to tell the dog no or correct the dog using some means. I don't know what kind of collars these dogs wore. And it could have been that because this has been one of those days where she did that and the dog says, screw you, I'm not taking it. Bitter, knocked her down. And now you go back to what I talked about before, where you have a pack mentality where they take her out and they kill her just because their brains are telling them to do it, not because they're aggressive. And I hope that comes out fairly clear. I know biting and everything else sounds like aggression, but it's not because of aggression this all, I think, happened. I think something had to precipitate the pack mentality, which then it causes something completely different. It is taking out the weak and not necessarily based on aggression. I know that I'm mincing words and probably walking a line that most people aren't comfortable with, but that's what I know and that's what I've seen. All right, let's see some of these comments that are coming up here. This makes a lot of sense. Good. I'm glad I'm making sense. Sometimes I wonder if I make sense. I'm listening to myself, and to me, I'm making sense to myself, but I'm not quite sure if it's actually coming out the same way that it's in my head. All right, very important. I'm reading my notes here. So, thank you, Levi. I really appreciate your comment there. So back to lack of training. So the lack of training can be a thing too. But from what I'm reading in the articles and what I'm reading in regard to witnesses who had seen her with her dogs, say these dogs are fairly friendly dogs. They've been around lots of people. She's taken the work. So I don't think lack of training is a cause of what happened. I think the two possibilities are this: she fell and got hurt, and the dog smelt blood because she's on her menstrual cycle. And the combination, right? It's more than just one factor. Somebody's going to go away and say, well, he said because she was on her menstrual cycle, the dogs took her out. No. I think you had to have something before, and now you add that, and it just is that one thing that possibly is the thing that kicked it over. It could have been the menstrual cycle had nothing to do with it. Yes. It could also be that she just simply fell, got hurt. The dog saw weakness. They took out the weak party in their group, which is natural. It is natural. I know that seems strange. And when you're talking about domesticated dogs, but with some dogs, powerful dogs, it's natural. And it's just what they do. We've demonstrated hundreds and hundreds of times with police officers that they will be taken out if they pop that door to get their dog out and they are on the ground. If they're on the ground, their dog is going to bite them seriously and take them out. It will happen. I'm telling you, I've seen it. No worry, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if this is the situation here, that was what's going to happen to her. The other situation that the dogs are being trained in a manner that they're not completely comfortable with. And on this day, they decided, one of the dogs, you don't need both. All you need is one of the dogs not to like something that she could have stepped on their paw, right? She could have stepped on their paw in a way that pissed the dog off. The dog growled. She said no and maybe pushed the dog away. And the dog comes back and she falls, goes on the ground. And now you have that same situation. On the ground is bad in a heated situation. Now you're going to say, well, I'm sure she's rolled around on the ground with the dog in the living room while watching television, that kind of stuff. It's entirely different. That is not in a situation where it all kicks in because there's no negativity happening. It's fairly fun and probably calm. And she's petting the dog and her voice is in a way that the dog feels comfort, right? And nothing is showing that this is any sign of weakness. It's just what happens with dogs. You see dogs rolling over all the time in a pack environment, right? But when it becomes serious, when it becomes injurious or angry or fearful, that's you've moved into a entirely different place in the dog's brain. All right. Now there are dogs, and we've seen people have this situation where if you're playing tug of war with your dog and you end up on the ground with some dogs and you're playing tug of war and now you're on your back and you're trying to pull out your dog, you can see a change in the dog. And we've seen that too, where the dog's eyes get real big and you see them switching over to this other place in their head, and now it becomes serious. And the handler, and I've heard of and I've seen human beings get a little bit scared because now the dog has switched over in this other place. And I'm sure all of you have either experienced or know somebody that says, oh man, the dog kind of scared me, he kind of growled at me. It's because you put him in a situation where he felt that you were showing weakness or that he felt fear of some sort, and these things can happen. Cameron Thompson is on. What if she had a seizure or other health crisis? Did you address that? Sorry if I missed it. No, that is really good. That's another one. If she did, then you're right back in that situation. You're on the ground in having a seizure, and the dogs kick in. You're showing that you are in a position of weakness. If they go into that pack mentality and you're on the ground, you're showing weakness, and you're out in the wilderness, and one of the dogs. So one of the dogs she has since 8 weeks. The other dog she had as a rescue, that a dog was abused, right? And so there's a good chance that this other dog has a little bit of a history, maybe that was not good. And so the connection between her and that dog may not be the same as the dog that she raised from 8 weeks old. So if she goes down because of a seizure, Cam, and is rolling around and kind of seizing up and doing all the things that happen when you're in a seizure, again, one of the dogs recognized that as a weakness and, maybe bite her or nuzzle her or something like that. And then she pushes the dog away. And now it kicks into this other area in the dog's brain. And now the other dog, who would normally not show aggression, now shows aggression because it's kicked into the pack mentality of taking out the weak. And again, it has to do with being on the ground. I know it seems very strange, but that's it. That's the determining factor. And again, being with police officers and running those scenarios over and over again and showing them what happens when they end up on the ground, they're dust and their dogs take them out. And it just happens. So if you missed it, just want to make sure that you understand that I used to handle a training scenario at the International Police Canine Conference, where we would have 100 canine handlers come, up to 100, maybe 125 canine handlers, and we'd have them all go through the scenario where they were losing a fight on their back with a suspect over top beating them with their fists, acting, right? And then they pop their door, and every one of their dogs would come out and attack the handler, not the suspect who was beating them. Why? Because the weak member of this pack between the three people was the handler. Dogs don't care. It's whoever's weak has to go. If you're weak, you got to go. And that's the way it is. And so seizure, Cam, thank you for mentioning that. That could have been it. She could have tripped and fell, got her leg caught on a rock, twisted her ankle, hit the ground, screamed in pain. One of the dogs jumps on her back, and now she falls over and says, "Get off of me." Next dog comes in and says, "Hey, what's going on here?" And now they got 2 dogs on top, and it's over, right? All you need is 1 dog to bite, and then it's done. The story's over. She's only 125 pounds. There's no way she's going to get those dogs off her. Like I told you before, I've had 125 well-trained muscle handlers getting hit by their dog in a muzzle, and they can't get up, and they can't get the dog to stop. They stand up. They try to send their dog to go get the suspect. Now the dog turns around and hits them, knocks them back to the ground. And it's a crazy, crazy thing that all handlers are shocked. I've seen handlers like going, "You got to be kidding me. I trained this dog since he was a year old. He's now 3 years old. I never, ever thought my dog would bite me or attack me." And they're shocked that their dog would do that. And I'm telling you, they have to be shown. That's one of the things they have to be shown, because they would never, ever in a million years think that their police canine that they've worked with for 3 years in gun battles, in searching for suspects, in fighting with other suspects with a dog, never in a million years think that their dog would do that to them. And again, I know at least 2 handlers that had to go to the hospital because their dogs hit them so hard in the muzzle that it caused rupturing. One ruptured a kidney, and one ruptured a disc in their back because the dog hit them so hard. So I know how this works, and I'm telling you that this is probably one of the things that happened. It's not a lot of the other things that you're reading on the internet. All right. Who else? Parrot is acting on instinct. Yes. Thank you, Cam. Very good. All right. So I think I've reached my agenda here and made sure and talk about this a little bit. I don't know where this will go. I think as always, the pit bull dog will take a hard hit as far as being called a dangerous breed. I hope you understand where I was going there with my thoughts on the pit bull breed. That it, like I said, it had a name called the nanny dog, where it was used to babysit children while the grown-ups worked on the farm. And the dog would be left with the children to take care of them, because the dog had that mentality and can be that docile and that domesticated. But their jaws are sure powerful, and they can cause a lot of damage. So it just takes one bite, and you can have a broken bone, you can have a broken wrist, a hand. They do know to go to the face. That's the genetics. The dog has been trained to bite the nose of a bull and pull him down to the ground. They've even fought bears, and that instinct, that genetic creation is for the dog to go to that place, the neck, the nose, and bite, and then that jaw comes down, and it's powerful. And again, you need a piece of wood called a pry. Just lost the name of it, but it's a pry tool to pry the dog's teeth apart so you can get out from underneath that bite or get the dog off another dog. And so that exists for a reason, because it's so strong. Yvonne Bavakwa, thank you very much for spot on. I was kind of afraid to come on and talk a little bit about this, because I'm not afraid. Cam and I were talking about fear earlier. Not that kind of afraid. I just wonder what people are going to think, because I'm not trying to make an excuse for these dogs. It's all dogs. I'm not talking just about pit bulls. It just so happens she had 2 pit bulls where the likelihood of this happening is pretty high. If she had 2 German Shepherds and this kind of thing happened, it could happen with them too. If it was 2 Akitas, surely that could happen. The difference is the bites are completely different, right? They hurt and they're powerful, but they're not the same as a pit bull's bite. That's what makes the dog dangerous, not that they're more aggressive than any other dog. It's their bite is so powerful. And all it takes is one bite. And if you're on the ground and you're screaming for help, the dog that would normally be your friend is going to take you out. And that's a fact. All right. So this is not for you to fear dogs. None of this had to do with fear dogs, because the scenario for this happening almost has to be one of those perfect storms where it just all goes wrong. Right. And that's kind of the thing. It rarely all goes wrong. Like this, or else we'd hear more about this kind of thing. But in this situation, I think this is a more likely scenario than the ones I've been hearing. Again, that she was attacked by somebody and raped, or that a wolf came out of the woods. The likelihood of any other animal coming and taking on a woman with those 2 dogs is not that strong, unless they just came across them and the wild animal had no avenue of escape. Most animals would rather not have the confrontation, would flee, unless you catch them in a situation where they feel, hey, fighting is the only option, and they would do that. And I don't think that was at least as far as the autopsy and the evidence they were able to find on their break stick. Thank you. I lost it. Thank you, Liz. I've only investigated like 3 or 4 pit bull rings over the years and have seen plenty of break sticks. I just couldn't remember the name of it, but thank you so much. So let me put that up there and give Liz credit for coming up with the name of the pry tool, the wooden pry tool that I was coming up with. Yeah, I had a funny case in Pahrump, Nevada. It was a pit bull fighting case. And this is how backwards some towns are and some of the things that I get confronted with testifying as an expert in these things. And I go to this case. I spend 4 or 5 days in Pahrump, Nevada, investigating, all the evidence that they have as far as where the fighting was taking place, where the dogs were bred, and all this kind of stuff. And so I asked the investigator that I'm working with, where's all the evidence? And they said, I'm expecting to go to the evidence locker at the police station where they would, where everything has, every time somebody touches evidence, you have to write your name down. So there's a chain of evidence, right? Everybody who touches it has to write their name down. You know exactly where this evidence has been. Am I taken there? No. I'm taken to somebody's garage that's a friend of one of the animal control people, and they have it in their garage. When we go there, they're going, oh, it's in here somewhere. And we're looking through boxes, and in a box full of paint, which is unrelated to the case, you find a couple of the brake tools in there, and brake sticks in there. And I find some other evidence in another box, and it's spread all out. And there's no chain of evidence. There's nothing. And I'm just at some random person's garage who's a friend. They had the space in their garage where they could take all the evidence. This is how stupid some of these cases are and some of the things that I get confronted with. And I don't even know why I went on this story, but it had to do with brake sticks and where they were. The brake sticks in this case were in somebody's garage and were part of evidence. They were part of evidence in the case. And they just put them there because they couldn't find any place to put them. So they put them in Joe Schmo's garage because he had room. How stupid is that? All right. So I hope this was helpful. I hope answered some questions. I hope that tells you a little bit more about Falco Canine Academy and where we're coming from. I really try to look at things from a fresh slate, and then take the things that I hear and read, and then kind of look at some of the things that I've experienced in my history and tie all the things together. So I'll be interested to hear any more evidence that comes out, because then, of course, I'll have more information. I also want to give you this disclaimer that I have no connection with anybody there in Virginia, so I don't have any more information than you do. And so I want to make sure that that's clear, that this is I'm just assuming some things, and I'm putting in my training and experience to give you an idea of how something like this could happen. And I'm probably leaning towards it's possibly one of those things. I think she was hiking. I think that something happened where she twisted her ankle and fell on the ground. The one dog probably could have gotten fallen on, which caused the dog maybe to growl. And then the cycle begins, and then they begin to take her out. I think it's that simple. I don't think it's as sinister as everybody wants to believe. I don't think it has anything with the dogs being abused before she went for a walk. I don't think it has to do with her being attacked by anybody or anything. It's just simply one of those things that can happen. And it's a perfect storm that caused, unfortunately, this young woman's death. A beautiful woman who lost her life. It just happens. It was an accident, and the dogs did what they probably were. Their genetics caused them to do, and who they are as animals, right? And the pack mentality took over, and she just simply couldn't get up, and it was over with. And she unfortunately passed away. All right. So thank you for, as usual, putting up with a couple of visits with my children and talking. When I do these things late in the evening on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you can expect that my children will make an appearance. I think that's just kind of one of the things they like to do. My daughter's back here watching and listening. And maybe she's hungry. She's waiting for me to cook dinner, probably. Is that? Yeah. She's waiting for me to come in and cook dinner, which I'm going to be using my pressure cooker again for the third night in a row. And I have it's going to be good. It's going to be one of her favorite dishes. Third night in a row. I made something last night. Yes. They're illegal brake sticks in many places. Thank you for addressing this. Oh, let me put this up so everybody can see it. So Liz says, yep, they're illegal in many places. Thank you for addressing the story that's getting tons of momentum and rampant speculation. I was just feeling awful about reading the story. It is a horrible story. Let me just go on. A few stories I went on to, there was some laughing and that kind of stuff. I do not think that this story is funny whatsoever. I use sometimes humor to kind of lessen my stress or lessen my emotions about certain things, and that's just kind of who I am. So if anybody felt any of my my lightheartedness during the story it was out of place. I apologize, but I do think this is an extremely sad situation. A lady who obviously cared about these two dogs and found a place for them in her home and with her family. And really, it looks like she really loved these dogs. And so, again, I think it was just an unfortunate accident that caused the dogs to kick into what nature has told them to do. And that's all it is. It's nothing necessarily what I would say sinister or anything like that. Oh, I know I was going to address whether these dogs should be put down or not. And this is probably going to be the most unpopular, is that the right thing? Unpopular thing that I can say. And unfortunately, my thought is that these dogs should probably be put down. For the only reason is that you'll never be able to place these dogs anywhere. They're going to have the history of killing a human being, right? The dog that she's had since 8 weeks old is possibly not ever going to show aggression. It had never shown aggression before, but now because it has, there is a high likeliness that it can again. There's something about this breed that once they show aggression, it's more likely that they'll do it again. And that again is from my experience with these dogs, that once they've harmed another dog or killed another dog, the next time is usually worse. Next time, usually, not always, usually worse. So it's just an unfortunate situation. Again, now we're on to the very negative aspect of this. Not only did the woman lose her life, but now these two dogs should, and I'm telling you, they should. And I know many people, I've seen people say, it's not the dog's fault. And it is an unfortunate situation. These dogs have killed or been part of the death of a woman, and that's going to follow them around. And you cannot get rid of that. You cannot shake that from these two dogs. There are millions of dogs that need homes. There are millions of dogs that need your love. And unfortunately, these two dogs are just not, it's not safe to put these dogs with anybody. They've shown that they can kill somebody. People will say, well, let's find out whether it's just one dog that caused all the damage. You'll never find that out. You'll never know. And so the unfortunate thing, in addition to that, is that let's say they're taken to a rescue and taken to some pit bull rescue. The liability now falls on that rescue. If they adopt those dogs out and somebody gets hurt, the rescue is over with. The people who run that rescue are done financially because they adopted out dogs that they knew were dangerous. They knew that they had killed somebody. So there's no way that anybody's going to take on the liability of placing those dogs with anybody. What are you going to do with those dogs? Are they going to live in a kennel the rest of their entire life? How cruel is that they live in a kennel and never get an opportunity to get out? And so I think it's just for the dog's well-being that they get put down, that you don't want a dog to live in a 8x7 or whatever the measurement is for whatever kennel is out there. Make them live in that environment for the rest of their lives. It's an unfortunate situation. And yes, I do believe that these dogs should be put down once the investigation is over and they find out everything they can about the investigation. So they know, right? The family wants to know everything they possibly can know. Then the dogs just need to be euthanized, and it may not even be their fault. And I understand that, and I understand the people that go, no, these dogs, no, there's nothing you can do with these dogs. The history is that they killed somebody. That is their history, and so it's just the way that it has to be, because nobody in the right mind would adopt those dogs out. That you can't give them to a foster family or a person, even a single person, to go. Let me end on one more thing. And I'm sorry, I know some of you were really to click off and go and make your dinner. And I'm sorry to my daughter. Come here and look at the sad face about how hungry she is. So we had a pit bull that we were trying to help. And the dog showed us every sign that it just was not going to get help. It didn't want to respond to training. We tried all the different techniques we use to help a dog through its aggression, and we did everything we could. We tried it all, and this dog was showing no signs that he was going to get better. Now, the dog, when we first got him, was perfectly fine, right? The dog had already tried to bite somebody, so they give him to us. When we get there, the dog's, wagging his tail. We're feeding the dog. And all of a sudden, in many cases, a dog for the first week and a half or 2 weeks will not show you his true self, right? You often come into a new environment and they're a little concerned and they're a little thrown off. So some dogs tend to be on their best behavior. And just like kids, right? Your kids go to your friend's house or your family's house, And the people, the grown-ups there, tell you the next day, oh my God, your child is so fantastic, right? They helped out. They said thank you. They said all these things. You have a great, and you're looking like, you're talking about my child, right? Because they're in a new environment. They don't want to act out because they don't know what the consequences are going to be. They don't know what's going to happen. Dogs are very similar, that when they go into a new environment and are now living there for the first few days, they're kind of standing back, kind of weighing what's going on, and they're trying to make sure that they are safe. As dogs begin to be more comfortable, then you begin to see the personality. Same thing happened with this pit bull dog. In the beginning, the dog showed signs of being very friendly. It was even wagging. And then it began to change very quickly. And next thing you know, we can't even get into the kennel. The dog is, he's biting the chain link fence, and we're trying to feed the dog through the kennel. We're trying to give him treats through the kennel. I have to go in there with protection to get the dog on leash. The dog's biting me, 3 or 4 times as I'm trying to get the leash on. And then I get the dog out, try to walk him. I'll walk him for about 10 feet. Then he turns and attacks me, right? And we tried all the techniques. Just understand that. So I make the recommendation to the people, the rescue that had asked me to help them out with this dog. And I said, this dog's dangerous, and it is my recommendation that this dog be euthanized. And they said, no, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, why did you come and ask me to evaluate and train the dog in the first place if you thought that I was going to be full of crap? And so they take the dog back, and they said, you're full of crap. This dog is perfectly fine. We saw, in the video, because I did take a video of the dog when he first got there, and he was perfectly fine. Again, it takes a while for a dog to kick into his true personality. They take the dog back. They tell me I'm full of crap. They take him to another trainer. The lady writes me an email. Hey, this dog is perfectly fine. She tells me that on the first day. And I go, how long have you been in the training business? And she, 25 years. And I said, okay, just wait. And she goes, I don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. This dog's perfectly fine. And I go, okay. I don't know what to tell you. Just in a couple of days, he's going to be a handful, and you're going to have a tough time. And so I said, be careful. 2 months after that, I get an email from somebody else who said, hey, I just want to let you know what happened with that dog. And they said, here are the pictures of the trainer's hand. And the lady was now missing 3 fingers on her hand. And you could see the bites all the way up her wrist. And the damage that was done by this dog was actually caused so much damage in her hand that she lost the use of her left hand. And I tried to tell them, right? And so I've been around for a really long time. I've saved many a dog from being euthanized, many a dog. And it's mostly because I was able to change the handler in the way that they were living with their dog and training with their dog that allowed the dog to live, right? So it's not always the dog. On occasion, you have a few dogs that are dangerous. On occasion, you have a few dogs that it's just better for them that they be euthanized, because there are a lot of other dogs out there that need homes, that dog just is never going to get placed. It's going to be taken up a kennel for years, living in a very small space, and can never live the life of what most domesticated dogs, all domestic dogs, should be living. And that is as a pack member of your family, taken for walks, going for hikes, right? That's what you want from a dog, not a life of being stuck in a kennel. And so I hope I didn't go too far with that last thing, but I'm just telling you that I know these things, and there's some dogs that it's just the way that it has to go, and it has to be. We can't save them all. As much as we would love to save them all, we just simply can't save them all. There are a lot of dogs out there. There are some damaged dogs that are just not going to ever be able to live in a home with a family. If, God forbid, I brought a dog home that bit my daughter here, I would be devastated. No, I would say if I ever did, you couldn't bring a dog like that into this environment. I've had plenty of dangerous dogs that I would never have brought home to my kids.
The other dog that we weren't allowed to go outside with.
Yeah. There's.
And we had to euthanize it.
Yes. See, that's the dog, and so that happens. All right. So I hope I didn't go. I could have probably finished on a high note, but we had to talk about it, because I did say I would talk about whether those dogs should be euthanized or not. But that's my opinion. Again, you don't have to listen to my opinion. You can say whatever you want about my opinion, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm happy to take on any comments that you may have about what it is that I said. I don't need everybody to agree with me. I don't. But I'm glad that some people were able to get some insight as to what happens. And my experience, I hope, helped you understand that what probably happened in this situation is just a horrible accident that went in a way that sadly a woman lost her life. All right. That is it. Thank you, Lisa Campbell, for joining me. Thank you. Did I say Lisa? Liz Campbell. Sorry about that. Liz Campbell, Yvonne Bavakwa, Cam Thompson, my new co-host on the podcast, Train the Dog Trainer podcast. If she's still now, hoping she's still going to be my host after listening to this Facebook Live. Levi D. Martinez, appreciate you coming on. And again, Carmen Jimenez. Carmen, we're not related, are we? Are we related? And I'm supposed to know that we're related and somehow did not know that. Please let me know if we're cousins or something like that down the road. She might be my cousin. I don't know. Christy Duran, we went to high school together. I love Christy. She's beautiful. Her family's beautiful. And we have a story that I'll probably tell someday that she's probably going, no, don't tell the story if she's still on. Carmen, thank you for all your comments. I really appreciate it. Christina Porter, Mears, I appreciate you being on. We have a long history. Her and I met when I was a police officer, City of Anaheim. And thank you for joining me. And all those that did not comment, I appreciate your comments and your watching. Oh, Gina's here. I'll have to catch the replay. Yeah, you're going to like this one, Gina. All right, that is it. Thank you for all the reactions. We got 23 reactions, 15 comments. Please, if you're watching the replay, I want you to comment because I will see that you comment. So if you're watching the replay, Gina, make sure and comment on certain things. Let me know if you have any questions. Anybody else that you're watching now and you watch the replay, please go back and comment and let me know how you feel. I really want to know what your thoughts are on everything that we talked about tonight. All right, that is it. I will talk to you later. I got to feed the kid, or not only the kid, but the kids. I got several kids, 5 kids. All right.
Well,
Courtney's there. All right, we got to go. Talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye.